Hi, I'm Andrew Dubber. I'm the Director of Music Tech Fest, and this is the MTF podcast. I first came across the name Ethan Diamond on the 8th of September 2008. I'd been blogging about music online for about 4 years, and I'd just published a book for independent artists about the technologies and the opportunities of the internet, and also how to think about the relationship between artist and fan in that context. And I got this email, which, of course, I've kept. It says, "Hi there, Andrew. My name's Ethan Diamond. I'm a long-time reader of your blog and a big fan of the 20 things you must know about music online. In fact, after reading it several months back, I formed a startup to address many of the issues you raise in the book. My new company, Bandcamp, is essentially a publishing platform for musicians. If at all possible, I'd like to demo it for you sometime Friday. We're tentatively scheduled to launch next Monday, the 15th. I'm in San Francisco, but it's easy enough to demo over the phone, provided you're in front of a computer with an internet connection. Thanks very much for your time. Hope to speak with you soon. Ethan Diamond." Now, since getting that email and being kind of blown away by the service itself, and then agreeing to come on board as a kind of advisory board member, I've been a close follower and advocate of Bandcamp. I really think it's a fantastic thing for artists. And today, if you're listening the day this podcast comes out, Friday, May 1st, 2020, Bandcamp's doing something more than usual to help artists in the light of the COVID pandemic. That small percentage they take off the top of each sale, that's going directly on to the artist. Now, last time they did this back in March, over $4 million went directly to the artists using the site. So today and the next few first Fridays of the month are going to be great days to support independent music. Now, I hadn't spoken to Ethan for a while. He's been busy growing the platform and the team, but I thought that this would be a really good occasion for a long overdue chat. So from a small room in a house in San Francisco, here's Bandcamp CEO Ethan Diamond. Enjoy. Ethan Diamond, thanks so much for joining us for the MTF podcast today.
Thanks for having me.
We have a bit of a history, so we should probably start at the beginning. When did you first encounter what I was doing?
Well, let's see. I think that was in 2000 and I want to say it was 2007, right? When you came out with, it was New Music Strategies, right? And you had 20 things you must know about music online. Did I get that?
Wow, you can remember that title better than most people, including myself.
I think that was it. And there is one of the 20 in there really stuck with me. And that was hear, like, buy.
Right.
That music is unique compared to books or film, in that the order has to be, you hear it a few times, you decide you like it, and then you buy it. And this was, in 2007, right? When everything was 30-second snippets online.
Yeah.
And that just never made any sense to me. So, one of the things that from the very beginning, what we wanted to do is make a service that really embodied that particular point of yours.
Right. Wow. Okay, so nobody buys music anymore. Have you been told?
We are up to, on an average day, people buy 78,000 records through Bandcamp per day.
That number again?
78,000.
Wow.
Yeah. So I always felt like, that was a line that people were saying in 2007 already because of piracy.
Right.
And we demonstrated that, if you actually give people a way to directly support an artist, they want to take you up on that. People want to help create more of the music that they love, right? Because It makes them feel like connected to the process, like they're helping make it, connected to that artist. And I think that was true already when, streaming didn't exist and it was piracy that was on everyone's mind. And now, it still exists now that I think piracy isn't so much of an issue anymore.
It's a niche activity, I think.
Yes, it is.
So just sort of, first principles. What is Bandcamp?
Well, we didn't start this way, but nowadays and for a while, I like to say that we are an online record store and music community. And I think, what our sort of key differentiator is that we're a place where people directly support the artists they love and connect with those artists. And it's also unique in that about half the sales at this point are for physical goods, right? So it's not just digital music, it's vinyl and cassettes. And like last year, 300,000 cassettes were bought on Bandcamp.
Wow.
This talk about niche activity.
That's insane. Has it ever been a great time to be an independent musician?
I think it's always a great time to be an independent. I wish I could be an independent musician. I don't have the musical skills to be an independent musician, but
I was just listening to a piece of music that you were on. So there's a 20-minute loop track where you've got a baritone sax solo. And I thought maybe this is why he's got the site set up in the first place, is to send people to that track so that he can get all those royalties from that the Husker Du cover.
Yeah, that's right. That was really fun. I can't believe you found that. That was a long time ago.
Yeah, everything's available on Bandcamp, But it's a particularly hard time to be an independent musician right now, right?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, this is, this has been really the reason that we started doing these fundraiser days, because independent musicians lost such a huge part of their income with the loss of touring. But yeah, we hope that we can help, at least in a small way, with that.
So what's the idea?
Well, so the idea is that, on March, so we already did one. It was back on March 20th. We did a day where we were just trying to raise awareness around the impact of the virus on independent musicians. And so we waived our fee for a day. And normally our fee it's 10% on physical, 15% on digital, and then you've got payment processor fees on top of that. So the average usually going to an artist is about 84%. So if somebody pays $10 for something, it's $8.40. So, but we on the 20th just dropped our fee entirely, and the response was amazing. It ended up being $4.3 million in 24 hours, which was over. Wow. And it was people bought about 800,000 items in that day, and it was about 15 times a normal what was a normal Friday for us. And yeah, the other thing that stood out really a lot was the response from the community. A lot of labels also announced that they were going to pass on their sales directly to artists that day. And this isn't like Warner and Universal, right?
Right.
These are independent labels. There are about 7,000 independent labels on the platform, and so that was amazing to see. And so many artists and labels announcing that they were going to pass on all of the money they made that day to food banks and other relief organizations. So it was really the community response, I think, was really the most heartening thing, I think, to come out of that. So because that was such a success, we decided that we would do it more. And so we're doing one the first Friday of the month for what we announced is the next 3 months. So it's starting May 1st is the next one, and then the next 2 Fridays after that. And that's, after that, we'll kind of see where things are and reassess.
And are your shareholders delighted to be giving all this tidy profit away?
Well, I would say, so Bandcamp, we're also not like a mega funded company, right? In 2007, 2008, we took a little bit of VC funding and then focused on getting to profitability. So we did that got there in sort of 2012, and that's helped us maintain the mission, maintain the vision that we've had for the company for a long time, and yeah, so I think that everybody's pretty thrilled with the way we've been able to do that.
Yeah, fantastic. Let's talk about the origin story for a bit. The sort of comic book one. You came from essentially inventing webmail, right?
That's right. Yeah.
Odd Post.
That was back. What was that? 1999. And yeah, it was basically when everybody was using Eudora and Outlook, and a friend of mine and I started working on a system to bring that online. So this was before like Gmail and like Hotmail existed, but it was very very basic. So our idea was to try to build more of a desktop experience on the web, and DHTML was kind of just that was being used for button rollovers and things like that. So we thought, well, we can use that for more than that. And yeah, so that's where I started. And then in 2000, so that company in 2004 was acquired by Yahoo, and I worked there for 3 years. And then started working on Bandcamp.
And this is you and Sean, right?
Yes, that's correct. Sean Grunberger. He's my co-founder and CTO.
Okay, so tell me a little bit about him. What's the hook between you guys?
Well, we started the first company we worked at together was a company called Half Brain, and that was back in I probably started in 1998, and that was even early. That was even okay. So that was the very first company, as far as I know, that was really using this new, at the time, new technology, DHTML, to try to make an application inside of a browser. And what Halfbrain did was a spreadsheet. So it was making Excel inside of a browser. And from there, we started working on a presentation program. And, it's all of the things that we all now do with Google Docs and Google Sheets and those things. That was what that company was doing, and it was really successful. But then 1999 hit, and everything kind of went poof.
You're talking about the bubble.
Yes, exactly.
Right.
Okay, so but that's where I met Sean. Sean was an engineer at Halfbrain, and I loved working with him, and we always wanted to work together again. So yeah, we ended up. It took about 8 years, but we ended up back together at Bandcamp.
So how do you go from webmail to music?
Well, so there was a band. It was 2007. I was working at Yahoo and trying to decide what I wanted to do after that. And this band that I really liked decided that they're going to put out a new record, and they did that. And on the day that the release came out, I went to their website, and the website just did not load. And this is 2007, right? So it's MySpace is what you had besides this. So I thought when the website didn't load, I thought, all right, they're just overwhelmed. I'm going to check back a couple of days from now. And I did that, and at least loaded, but it did it really, really slowly. And there was kind of this weird interface to check out, because this was also the time when Flash was very popular, and so there was always some sort of custom crying black crow flying over the screen or something that you had to interact with in order to
click to skip intro. Yeah.
No, I don't know what it was. So but I paid for the album, and then nothing happened.
Right.
And then I found an email address on the site, and I got an email back from who I think was the lead singer. And he said, sorry about that. Here's the link to the album. And it was a zip file link, and it was totally open. Right. And I clicked on it, and it worked. The music was there, but every track had a title like Master 3 (final.mp3). Right. And so there were these really low quality MP3s. And they all had these strange names, and so no metadata on them. And basically, I ran into every sort of technical problem you could imagine. But when I finally got the music, it was amazing, right? And to me, that made the situation just tragic, because it was clear that a lot of people weren't going to get to hear this amazing record because of all these problems, and that just that killed me, because I loved the band. I thought they should have all the success in the world. And, this was a problem that was begging to be solved.
And so your solution was make a shop?
Basically, so the solution, right, was that at the time, if you were a blogger, right, you had if your artistic output was words, you had Blogger, movable type, and a bunch of others, WordPress, right? And what they let you do is create a site very quickly that was entirely your own, where it would just say like powered by WordPress or powered by movable type at the bottom. And if you were a musician, what you could do was either, go to MySpace, where, you give them your content and then they show a bunch of ads and it's like MySpace, MySpace, MySpace. It's their brand everywhere.
Sure.
Or, whatever, hair gel ads and stuff. Or, you could do what this band did, and they pay an engineer, pay a designer, spend a bunch of money, and end up with something that didn't quite work. Right. Mm-hmm. And so that just seemed crazy to me. Like, why is it that if you make words, you have all these great options, and if you make music, you're kind of out of luck? And so the initial inspiration really was, hey, let's make, a white label service for artists that's kind of like what, Blogger, Movable Type, et cetera, are doing. And so, there was no community aspect at all. There was just the idea of, hey, let's let somebody upload their music in really high quality, right? That's really important to us. So you give us a lossless file, and then we're going to do the hard part of like transcoding it to all these things that, again, it's 2007, right? So there are all these people like FLAC and Apple lossless, and there's still a lot of people like that, right? But I would say there are a lot more of them then. And just make it really easy to find a play button and play that, listen to it a few times, going back to your, here, like, buy, and then give those people a really easy way to give that artist some money for their work. And, that was the simple concept that took off. And I think that one of the big moments for me was when we started looking at the search terms that people were using that landed them eventually on Bandcamp to buy music. And we were finding all these people ending up at Bandcamp who bought something, who had initially searched for like the name of an album or the name of an artist plus the word like torrent or Lime Kazaa or whatever these things were, all these pirating sites, who ended up basically at Bandcamp. And because of the presentation, where it was really letting the artist present their stuff as the artist, not as Bandcamp, they saw that and went, oh, you know what? I don't want to pirate this. I want to just pay the artist directly for it. And when we saw that, it was like, okay, this is working. And and that wasn't, it wasn't obvious that was going to happen from the beginning. I can't say I knew for sure, that would be the business model. I just knew I didn't want it to be advertising, because I've been in that world and didn't particularly enjoy it.
Okay, so there's one thing that stood Bandcamp even sort of more apart than anything else, and this was this idea of, this album costs $5 or more if you like.
Yes.
And that or more if you like was actually a lot more powerful than I would have thought, certainly. Whose idea was it, and how successful was that?
I wish I could remember whose idea that was. I feel like, obviously it felt to me like it was one of these sort of collective moments where Radiohead had done their pay whatever you want for this,
right.
For this album.
That was in Rainbows, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think you're right. But it also felt like, well, we should give the artist more control than that. You should be able to say, this is $5, $7, $10, whatever you want to say, right? It's your audience and your album. Maybe your album's 200 tracks and, you spent 10 years on it. I don't know.
Yeah.
But you should be able to set the price yourself, because you know your audience better than we do.
Sure.
And if somebody wants to come along and pay more than you set as that minimum, then great, let them do that. And that started happening. I want to say that was in the product from the very beginning. And I feel like it started working immediately every day. So just to give you an idea of like how this was before, when we started, it was like before Slack. And so we were using IRC. So it was one channel only. The whole company, the company was 4 people, and we would just write to each other. And when there was a sale, one of our engineers had written a little bot that, put the sale right into the chat system.
Yeah.
And so you would be typing a question about, some piece of code, and then it would suddenly, there would be a bot line that said, cha-ching, so-and-so just paid $20 for blah, right?
Okay.
And that happened infrequently enough that, we could have that in the main channel. It did not happen 78,000 times per day at that point. And every day somebody would say, it would sometimes say, cha-ching, so-and-so just paid $100 for this, $1 track or this $7 album.
Yeah.
And it was just so cool to see. I mean, it was just, that's the generosity of fans, the passion, like knowing that people were doing that because this piece of music really resonated with them and they wanted to express that appreciation because, like I said, that appreciation creates that connection with the artist, and that's just so powerful. So it was great. It's cool to see.
Yeah. And there's some other things that have been kind of tried along the way as well. I mean, I know you've been quite keen to get vinyl happening.
Yes.
And there was BC Wax in the early days, and you had some releases as that, and then you did the Cities compilation. Did you do more than one Cities compilation?
No, we didn't. We just did the one. I mean, a lot of this was, so the BC Wax, we did 2 releases as part of that. We did the one around Oakland, where we now have a headquarters of sorts.
Yeah.
And we're still a distributed company, but so a lot of that was just figuring out, okay, we need to be very familiar with I wanted to be very familiar with the process of making vinyl and coming up with, the packaging and, listening to test pressings, finding a good facility and all of that. Because it felt like this is going to be an important, part of the business, but also just because that's what I grew up, listening to.
Yeah.
That's what my parents' record collection was on vinyl. And that's how I mostly listen to music, just because it gives me that, that feeling, right? It's not an audio quality thing for me personally. It's just, for me, it's a tactile thing and also just a process thing. I like committing myself to a whole record and going through that.
Yeah, sure.
So anyway, like I said, about half the business now is physical goods, and vinyl is the biggest part of that by far, and is also growing the fastest. Mm-hmm. So we've taken a lot of the things that we learned from doing those couple of sort of early tests and have used that to create this service that it basically allows people to press vinyl without a lot of well, first of all, without the risk, because you don't have to front, $3,000. The way the system works is that's the pressing is funded by your fans who are ordering the record.
Yeah.
And also just taking away, or at least trying to make a lot friendlier, the sort of domain expertise you have to press vinyl. So, we've built an interface for letting you specify a record that tries to demystify some of that. And we've been in a pilot phase with that now for quite a while. We're trying, there's a lot of tweaking to do. And we're getting ready to roll that out really, really soon to a lot more artists. And yeah, I'm excited about that one. I think it's going to be fun. It also, I should mention, takes away the hassle because we do all the fulfillment.
Right.
So, when your record comes back, when a record gets returned because of a corner ding or something like that, that
it comes to you. Yeah.
It comes to us. We handle that. We happily handle that.
Right.
And I feel like also that's just I feel like this is a good service for the world. I once, in the early days, ordered a record on Bandcamp that came back to me, and it was packaged exclusively in a single sheet of newspaper. Like somebody had taken a single sheet of newspaper, wrapped up the record, put postage on it, and it made its way from, it was Norway.
Wow.
It made its way from Norway to, San Francisco. And, it was completely destroyed, but it's one of my favorite records. It's this amazing record. It's by a band called Koppen, I don't know if I'm saying that right, but it's Koppen.
Okay. Yeah. Koppen sounds right.
It's so good, but the record, like the jacket is just like, peeled off more or less. Anyway, yeah. I like the idea of trying to get as many records as possible to people in proper packaging and so that happens to fewer people anyway.
Yeah, because how things look too seems to be really important to Bandcamp. Like when you were doing the like for instance the Solar Rosa album on BC Wax and sort of the early vinyl experimental days, the artwork for that's just beautiful, and you didn't need to do that. They already had artwork on the original, but that's translated into the stuff that you're doing with editorial. It's stuff that you're doing with the look of the website. Where does that kind of graphic impulse sort of come from?
I think that comes from a desire to make music an artifact, that's something that people want to collect. Like there was an early, first of all, it's just, I personally, I'm into design and like things to have a good interactive experience and look cool and all that business. And I've, always had that interest. But there was I went to a concert like 11 years ago, and at the merch table, there was you could get the record on CD and vinyl. Again, this was like long before, this was a sort of at the start of digital. And I got the record home and opened it up, and it was a black record in a white sleeve inside a flimsy piece of cardboard that said the band's name on the front. And the whole, part of it is a financial thing, right? That it's expensive to do anything beyond that. But if you are going to make vinyl, I feel like it's not a format choice, right? It's not just, oh, I want vinyl or I want a cassette. It's, I want this thing, right? I want to hold this thing in my hand while I'm listening to the music. And I think part of this also is like, when I was a kid, like AC/DC's Back in Black, I remember holding that record and like the embossed AC/DC popping out of the front and just like being, oh my God, this is the coolest thing in the world, and also just like poring over liner notes. And I felt like from the beginning, what we wanted to do is make Bandcamp kind of like a shrine for people who kind of really give a showcase kind of opportunity for people who take that much care. And there's so many labels and artists who do. There's like Ostinato Records and Analog Africa that create these, killer designs with, 30-page booklets giving you the entire history of like every single artist that appears on these compilations or records that they do. And I just love that. When you're sitting down with a record and, you get to completely immerse yourself in it like that through the art and through the liner notes, it's such a pleasure. And I want to make sure that that Bandcamp encourages that, right? So have lots of big art and places for the liner notes and places just for context, basically, because It's just so important.
Yeah, one of the things actually that raises an interesting point is one of the things that's struck me about my Bandcamp experience is that there's a lot of compilations that really are of interest to me. They sort of open up really fascinating realms of archival music or music from places that I've never been or heard of, and there seems to be, it's not just bands sticking out their latest releases, it's all this lovely curated stuff of people putting things together. Is that possible because of Bandcamp, or was this happening everywhere and we just didn't know about it?
I feel like it's always been happening, but we definitely we put a lot of effort into highlighting that when we see it. So, 3 years-ish ago, we started the Bandcamp Daily, which is the mission of the Daily. That's our editorial arm. And it's just to highlight, this incredibly diverse world of music that's on a site where, anybody can upload anything, right? And the result of that is that you have, weird subgenres and a lot of music, I think, that wouldn't necessarily be covered anywhere else. And I all they do all day long is kind of go digging through this and highlight things like that. And it's really, it's fun to see what people put up. Yeah, right. It's really great. Yeah.
The pressing vinyl thing, obviously, the sort of the first knee-jerk criticism for that would be, oh, you're just destroying the planet. But that's actually not the case. I sort of had a look through, and it's not probably well known, but Bandcamp's carbon neutral, right?
Yeah, that's right. We're in the midst of sort of overhauling all of the corporate pages on the site, for like what is Bandcamp for artists and labels, and part of that will be an environmental page that's not up yet. But yeah, early on, one of the things that we wanted to make sure that we did was try to get our operations to be carbon neutral. So that led us to moving a lot of the infrastructure to Google. Their operations are carbon neutral, and also doing offsets for all of our air. It's a distributed company, so there's not that much travel, but for all of our air travel, we work with a company called Atmosphere that basically funds renewable energy projects. With it's not just planting a tree, it's a really cool organization. And then for vinyl, we aim longer term to have the production of vinyl happen as close as possible to where we see the fans of that particular artist living. So we're moving things around as little as possible. And yeah, we have a couple other actually announcements about this that are coming soon. But one of them is that we will be making all of the production of the vinyl records that come through this service carbon neutral.
Well, that's fantastic. As a distributed company, and obviously you say you don't travel very much, but do you still do the get-togethers? And because you guys have expanded quite substantially since I was at a Bandcamp camp.
Yeah, so we're now 68 or 70 people, something like that, and
I think it was 8 to 10 or something.
Wow, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, 68 still feels to me like it's a pretty small company, but it's the same.
It is, yeah.
About thinking about when we were 8 it's a different world now. So
what's interesting is most, if not all, of those 8 are still there, right?
Yes, yeah. Everybody's pretty much, for the most part, the early folks are still at Bandcamp. So wow. We do still do an annual gathering, but just finding a place where we can host 70 people started to become a little bit more challenging. We couldn't just rent, we started off just like renting a vacation house, an Airbnb kind of thing. And now we go to Arizona to a ranch out there that can accommodate us for a while longer. And yeah.
Is the culture anything like, is it still sort of big happy family, or is it just a bit too kind of now too diverse, too unruly, too many different people to get a handle on that sense of it?
There's definitely a transition somewhere in there from feeling like when we had these gatherings that every single person, had to be in the same room together, or else they would feel like excluded, to there are now, several groups of people doing different things. There's a group of people over here, jamming. There's another group of people over here, playing card games. There's another group over here doing karaoke, So it was nice to see sort of that. Like there's a year or two in there where it was like, just struggling, I think, to keep it like everybody is all together at the same time, and we're making sure that everyone is part of sort of the same group. And now, yeah, there's just lots of little groups. But I am happy to say that everybody, I think, feels like they're contributing, I think, to something really positive. And there's just at events like these a lot of good feelings. So
right.
I don't think that's been lost in the transition to being a little bit bigger.
That's cool. There's a couple of things I wanted to ask you about, and I'm starting to think they might be the same question. The first one was that you don't see a lot of ads for Bandcamp. And the second one was, how come Bandcamp doesn't get mentioned in all these press articles about music services? Are those related questions, or is this, a deliberate under the radar thing, or is it sort of just we don't pay for advertising? How does it work?
Well, I view the Bandcamp Daily as as our marketing. That we invest obviously pretty heavily in the daily and making sure that we are doing our part to highlight some of the music that's on the site, and helping artists promote their music on search and within social media is something that we're definitely looking at. But I don't think the kind of advertising that works for like mass market services that also have sort of massive venture backing would really it doesn't work, I think, for us. Bus ads and billboards and that kind of thing, right? The economics are different, and I think also part of it is just a little bit my personal preference, right? I like the idea that Bandcamp is kind of hangs out in the background, right, and just makes all of this stuff work, and also hopefully helps the artist promote themselves, and it's not about Bandcamp.
Mm-hmm.
That's changed a little bit over the years because we, like I said, we started off as a white label service, but then the power of the community started to become apparent, and now the community drives about 35% of the sales that happen on the site. In other words, like artists recommending other artists, our discovery tools, people's collections. A fan can have a collection page and discover new music through that. So I like all that community being sort of the advertising that happens, and not go here to interact with Bandcamp, right? It's go here because this favorite artist who you love is here, and they're telling you to go here because that's where they get the best deal. That's where you can support them directly and connect with them directly. And to me, that's just like so much more powerful,
right?
To a true, anybody who's a true fan of an artist, I think, would react much better to that artist, giving them that pitch than us.
It is astonishing to me still that there's a lot written about music services and people still don't think to include Bandcamp. I mean, that's not just flying below the radar or using other avenues. It seems like, I mean, at best, laziness.
Yeah. The way I think about it is when I was growing up, so this is like, listening to music in the late 70s, early 80s, there were lots of people who exclusively interacted with music through the radio. And then there were people who bought tapes and bought vinyl records, and not everybody, needed to do that, right? There are a lot of people who are just totally happy listening to stuff on the radio. They like music. They turn on the radio. They have this channel that's kind of the style of music they like. And I feel like, that's exactly what's happening now. The streaming services are a lot like radio, and playlists are a lot like radio. And then there's this different kind of person who wants to go deep and interact with the artist and own the music and all that kind of thing. And it's that's a subset. And I'm happy to cater to that subset. And that doesn't need to be, the $1 billion, company. And a lot of the talk, I think, the coverage of music services, understandably focuses on the things that appeal to the largest segment of the population, and also, have the biggest dollar signs behind them, because that's interesting, right? Oh my God, this company raised this much money. Can you believe it? And, is worth this much money and is having sort of this effect on artists' careers, and whatever, 0.3 of a penny for that. And oh my God, you need 3,000 streams to make 1 hour's minimum wage. Like, all of that's very, very interesting to talk about. It's not necessarily as interesting to talk about, hey, did you know that there's also a place where you can actually just give the artist the money and they get almost all of it?
Right.
I think that's very interesting and awesome, and artists do too, but it doesn't
sell copies.
No.
How's the subscription thing going? Because there's some artists that you can just pay annually and get all of their music?
Yeah, that's working really well for some artists, and for others, I don't think it's the right thing. It's what we found is that that some artists felt like, okay, this puts a lot of pressure on me to produce, and on the fan side, the reaction was, I, hey, there's no pressure. I just want to support you, right? But because it does, I think, create some of that pressure. It's right for some artists and not for others. Some are absolutely creating, more than sustainable careers doing that. And so what we wanted to do is take what is working for the artists it's working for from that service and apply it to more artists on the site. So we recently, as in just last week, launched this community feature. So in addition, when you go to a typical Bandcamp page, you see music and merch. There's now a community tab where just like a subscriber can, talk to all of their, a artist who uses subscriptions can talk to all of their subscribers. Now anybody can do that to their followers and use that as a channel to promote their music. And previously that was just something that was doable by people who had a subscription or people who used our artist app, because the artist app lets you target your messages by who's spent more than this amount of money, or who is in this location, let me send them a message. So that's now something that just exists on desktop, and that came right out of the subscription service, and we're seeing a ton of people using that, so that's cool.
There's a lot of moving parts now when you come to sort of think of them, the record pressing and the subscriptions and the app, and then there's the artist app, and then there's but you're not big on releasing features. It's not like there's a new rollout every Friday or something like that. What's the process of kind of introducing something new to the Bandcamp kind of offer?
Well, deciding what to work on next, that has always felt like the easiest part of the job, because it's whatever benefits artists the most. That's because the way Bandcamp makes money is if artists make a lot more money, sure. Right? So that's what we try to spend every day doing. And so we sit there and look at okay, well, vinyl sales are exploding on the site, but let's look at the numbers. 9% of the albums on Bandcamp that have had a sale in the last year, only 9% of them are available on vinyl. And yet we're seeing this explosion in the amount of money being made by that 9%. Can we bring that to more and more artists? Okay, let's try to do vinyl pressing, because we actually saw, this is actually another feature where it's the behavior of the community that inspired it. We saw people doing a fundraiser essentially for a vinyl pressing by listing a physical item on Bandcamp, and then in the fine print, saying this is not actually made yet. If I get to this many orders, I'll do it. And we're like, okay, actually, this seems like something we could, build a product around. That pretty much happens with every feature that we build. Some of it is inspiration, but a lot of it is just like looking at the community and thinking, seeing what they're already doing or trying to do, and thinking, okay, which of these things is going to have the most impact for artists.
What about third-party integrations? Other sort of music platforms of different varieties that you can kind of plug Bandcamp into? Right
now, we don't do a whole lot of it. I mean, we have an integration with Songkick to show live shows. There's a sidebar essentially that shows where people are playing next. But other than that, we haven't done a whole lot of it. In the early days, we built an API. And have to admit, a little bit of a frustrating experience with that API, where a little too much of our energy ended up going into policing usage, which I hate. I don't want to do that. Nobody wants to do that. It was the terms of the API were really clear, but a lot of people were still using it to create things that would like play a stream and not show the artist's work next. Like the idea was, here's a stream, if you want to use that and the ability to show like the fact that the artist has vinyl or a t-shirt or a digital album for sale next to it, you can do that on your own site. But instead we just immediately we saw some of that, and that was great, but we also saw a lot of people just like putting ads next to those things, and not and doing things that just have no benefit to the artist and hurt the artist. So you can kind of play whack-a-mole with those things, or not. And we just figured, okay, we're going to revisit this when we can do it properly, and we haven't had the time yet to do that properly, but we still need to do that properly. I'm not
Sure.
like anti doing this. The early effort, when we were a really small group of people, it was just clear that, like, okay, this is not something that we have the time to do right now. So yeah, it still exists, but it's kind of like a secret, that it's there.
I have to ask, one thing that you've done that I guess would have surprised a lot of people is you've actually opened a physical record store.
Right. Well, I would say, okay, I would not call it, I wouldn't necessarily call it a record store. It's a showcase. Here is a fun Bandcamp fact. If you wanted to have just like one copy of every record that's on Bandcamp in your record store, the record store would be about twice the size of that Tower Records that's still in Tokyo, in Shibuya district.
Yeah, okay.
It's like 9 stories or 7 stories or something like that. It would have to be like twice as big as that, and you could only have like one copy of each record. So it was clear that, like, we can't have a Bandcamp's the record store, right? The online record store, and but again, like, going back to your question about design. What we wanted to do is have a place that sort of showcased what we felt like was like the best of Bandcamp in terms. So our editorial team promotes or it's the selection of records in the store is basically curated not only by the editorial team but by the designers. And the idea is, this is great music, and also kind of inspiring in terms of like what music can be as an artifact, like as a physical thing.
Right.
And then also just like to people who walk by, every single record, you can take off the shelf and sit down and listen to, and, just remind people of that experience and kind of have them associate that with like what Bandcamp is. Like, it's a moment where you can like really connect with this artist and want to support them. And the records, all these records are in a space that is also a performance space. And before the virus hit, we were in the process of building up a video series around that. So we have had several artists come in and play and filmed them, and we're building up this video series, which I think is, going to be on hold for a while now.
Sure.
But yeah, we just wanted primarily, I think, to create a showcase and a space to interact with the community, because, after 11 years of, working in libraries and cafes and, co-working spaces and stuff like that, like having a spot where artists traveling through the area where we could actually meet with them and, talk with them and not get interrupted by somebody ordering coffee or whatever it is. Like,
sure.
I felt like, okay, let's do that. So we found a really good spot in Oakland, and it's right next to the Fox Theater, which is an awesome venue in Oakland, and it just felt like a natural place to open something up.
Is there plans after all this is over for a second, third, fourth store?
Not right now. No, this isn't it's not like that.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So May 1st, where this podcast is going out, Friday, May 1st, it's, I guess, Bandcamp COVID Day. What are you going to be buying?
Ooh, okay. Let's see. What do I have right now?
You got a wish list lined up?
Oh, of course. Yeah. Okay. I want to get the new Jamila Woods. There's a record by Paddy Steer, this one-man band from the UK.
I know Paddy. Yeah.
Oh, you do? Oh, cool.
Yeah.
I mean, amazing, right?
Yeah, totally.
Crazy. Actually, it's not on my wish list anymore, but I just got a couple records from the Lewis Express, this band in Leeds that does soul jazz. Do you know them?
No, I don't.
They're so good. They remind me of like Marion McPartland, who did the piano jazz.
Yeah.
Like her music in the 1960s, like they're kind of like that. Wow. And so they're no longer on my wish list. I just got those, but let's see. I want to get Batsumi. Oh, there were a couple. So we did this. The Bandcamp Daily did a story recently on the 100th anniversary of the theremin.
Okay.
And there are a bunch of records in there that I wanted to check out that I think I might pick up as well. That's a really fun story to take a look at. Let's see. I'm sure I'm going to say this incorrectly, but there's I think it's pronounced Goldman Thibodeau and the Lawtel Playboys. There's a New Orleans label called Nouveau Electric Records that I really like. That was started by the guy who he's the leader of the Lost Bayou Ramblers, which is a great Cajun punk band. Is how I would describe themselves. And so he started a label that features some of the music from Louisiana, the part of the world he's in, that I wanted to check out. Nice. Yeah, that's kind of like a little smattering of some of the things. What I end up doing, like what I ended up doing on last time, was there's so much work leading up to this thing that it's kind of a frenzy on the day too. And I think in the last like 3 hours, when things finally calmed down, I sat down and like listened through again a bunch of things on my wish list and took care of it. but I didn't have all those, like, I didn't have these are the 5 things already in my cart, ready to go. I know a lot of people are doing that, but yeah.
Sure.
I have to say also, I don't, even though I think it's obviously I want to support people on Friday, and I will, just like I did last time, it's the economics on any day when you buy a record from an artist on Bandcamp are heavily in favor of the artist, right? I mean,
yeah, for sure.
It's on Friday, it'll be something like on average 95% going to the artist because there's still like credit card fees. Yep. And on Saturday, it'll be like 84% going to, on average, to the artist. So, I'm going to continue just, getting stuff from folks on Bandcamp when it pops up and I like it.
I do like it that the CEO of the online music store still buys music directly from the artist. It isn't one of the perks of the job.
Oh no, come on. You got to do, I mean, that's the whole point, right? There's no way. I think there was somebody, I don't remember, like 5 years ago, it was like, hey, should we give all of our employees gift cards? It's like, no, of course not. Everybody buys music directly from artists on, like, just, that's the spirit of the thing. So
sure. So what's the exit strategy?
I have to say, I don't think about the exit strategy. Like, I think about the mission and making the best possible thing for artists. And I'm occasionally asked this, and
well, you're a Bay Area tech company, so it's one of those things that's going to be asked.
Right now, we're at a point where the company is just growing nicely, and when you're growing nicely, I think that what you spend your time thinking about is like, okay, how do we make this work even better? How do we make the product better? How do we make more money for artists, and work again towards this mission? And the time for thinking about an exit strategy, I don't know, to me, that would be like, okay, this isn't working. Better figure out like what else to do here with this company. And that hasn't been the case for like 11 years, because I feel like, we've kind of just always stayed focused on the impact that the company is having. So yeah, I know that's, I don't know, that's maybe not the answer that, I don't know, an investor is looking for, but I hope that's the truth.
It's a nice answer. I think it's something that most people, I think, would want to hear, that the mission is the mission, and growing, that's the way forward.
Yeah, and I'm confident that if we do that, there's a positive outcome that's not just for us, but for artists as well. So I think, that's going to stay the focus for the foreseeable future.
Fantastic. Is there anything that we can do to spread the word?
Absolutely. Tell people to buy music from Bandcamp and support artists on Friday for the next first Fridays for the next 3 months. I think, last time it was a huge success. I hope it keeps going, and I hope that it helps out a lot of artists at a moment where it's really pretty challenging for a lot of people.
Fantastic. Ethan, thanks so much for your time.
Thank you.
That's Ethan Diamond, and that's the MTF podcast. I'm off to go and pick a few items off my wish list. I hope you'll do the same and support the independent musicians that you love. Don't forget to subscribe to the podcast if you haven't already. Share, like, rate, and review. And I'll catch you next time. Stay safe, have a great week, and we'll talk soon. Cheers.